Well, thank you very much for having me. I apologize for my voice because the pollens in Wichita are behind in Washington, D.C. I thought I was done, and when I arrived yesterday, my sinus is closed and my voice is like somebody that smoked 6 packs of Camel a day. And it's funny because yesterday we had a radio show, and I asked my wife to try to find it, and she said, "You really sound bad." And I thought, I think you're right. The problem is, the way I fight allergies is drinking grappa. But I couldn't take grappa on Southwest. They didn't allow me to take grappa to Wichita. Anyway, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to always be able to address a group of business owners, business executives, but most of all, active Catholics. And today I'm going to hold your hands while I'm going to walk you through my journey on how I learned what authentic Christian leadership is. And you know, the ancient Greeks, my beloved friends, tell us that nothing is more important than the good leadership for the harmonious functioning of society, and nothing hurts more than the lack of it. Our times cry for leadership, political, financial, and even ethical. Many people are asking today, especially millennials, where have the good leaders gone? Well, there is a book in the New Testament that you probably hardly ever hear at Mass, because it's the shortest of St. Paul's letters, and is the least doctrinal of his letters. It's 1 page and just before the book of Revelation. It's the letter to Philemon. Boys in this room, we can read. It's just 1 page. In that letter, I found a verse that perfectly sums up the essence and the meaning of authentic Christian leadership. And let me share it with you. And I quote, "I pray that the sharing of your faith may promote the knowledge of all the good that is ours in Christ." End of quote. You know, today we are troubled by the belief that leadership is something only few people can learn, and the rest are doomed to what is called leadership incompetence. Well, that's absolutely wrong. You know why? Because any Christian can be a leader. And Christian leaders are people who take responsibility for their baptismal commitments, conscious of having been incorporated into the church, and ready to cooperate in the mission of the church with its secular dimension. I am not talking about those who are in high places like presidents of corporations. I'm not talking about those, who have great wealth or who are prominent in the world. I am talking instead about those who have more weight, more influence, who help bring about the Christian transformation of society. I am talking about those who found happiness not in a juicy 401k retirement account, but in Him, our Lord. I'm talking about those who strive for consistency between faith and real life. I am talking about those, and this I hope is the first message that will be tattooed on your souls today. I'm talking about those who understand that God is in pursuit of them so that they can be in pursuit of others, like the beautiful lady shared a few minutes ago. Leadership is a process ordinary people use when they bring forth the best from themselves. In other words, leadership is everyone's business. I'm sure I have few MBAs guys in here, maybe even more than few. And maybe they can come up here and share taking the spider webs off their brain when they were in class learning about ethics and leadership. But to me, Mario, when they are performing at their best, leaders do 5 things. Number 1, leaders, they model the way. Number 2, leaders inspire a shared vision. Number 3, leaders challenge the process. Number 4, leaders enable others to act. And number 5, leaders encourage the heart. Yeah, you heard right. I had the honor to serve a saint, a real leader. But let me tell you how I ended up becoming a Swiss Guard. Well, first of all, you have to be Swiss, right? Because otherwise, you're not a Swiss Guard. Now, my dad, Swiss, my mom, Italian. My dad used to work for a pharmaceutical company in Basel and was transferred to Milano, northern Italy. And he met this girl at the cappuccino, bar outside of the Teatro alla Scala, okay? And the cappuccino, the croissant with the crema, was the hook of the love stories of the two of them, okay? We are at the beginning of the 1960s, all right? And so my dad proposes, and he says to my mom, well, you know what? I thought that we were going to stay here, but I've been called to go back to Switzerland. And so we're going to get married here, but we have to go back to Switzerland because that's where my job is. And my mom said, okay. Well, after about 5 months that they were living in Switzerland, my mom discovered that she was expecting me. And she went to my dad and she said, Albert, the Swiss people are crazy. I can't take it, I can't stand here. First of all, they melt the cheese rather than eating the solid cheese. There is the smell of manure 24/7. And they have dinner at 5. I grew up having happy hour at 5. Now I gotta go to bed at 7. I can't take it. And so my dad told my mom, you know what, let me see if I can be transferred back. And so he was retransferred to Milano, and so they found a place to live in a small village, which is my mom's village, between Milano and Bergamo, named Sotto il Monte. And that's where I was born. And guess who was also born in Sotto il Monte? Angelo Roncalli, Saint Pope John the 23rd. So imagine my joy on April 27, 2014, when Pope Francis, on the same day, he canonized the man that I served, Pope St. John Paul II, and the man that I dated 2 of his nieces, Saint Pope John the 23rd. So I grew up in Milano with a Swiss citizenship, and my goal after graduate school was to live at home until I was 38, because that's what you do in Italy. Why should you leave home? Your mom does all the laundry, cooks all the meal, you drive your dad car, you don't have to pay for utilities or anything, you come at 3 in the morning or you leave at 4 in the morning, everything is fine, unconditional love, so why should I leave, all right? But my dad did not forget his Swiss roots, and therefore he challenged me and he said to me, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to come up with what you want to do, or I'll tell you what to do. And I decided to challenge my father, and my father came back to me and he said, you need to join the army. And I said, really? Yes, and because you are Swiss, you can join the Swiss army, but because you're born in Italy, you can become Italian and you can join the Italian army. Keep in mind, whichever army you join, you lose the other citizenship. And I thought, you know what, I don't need a passport to prove my Italianity. I am loud, I talk with my hand, okay? So I don't need a passport. Besides, the Swiss army boot camp was only 17 weeks versus 54 weeks for the Italian army. And so there I was. At that time, ladies, I was an handsome dude. I had long ponytails. I was involved in fashion. I was constantly, my girl at that time, you know, I used to go out with Cindy Crawford, just to tell you. Not a joke, it's the truth. And so I arrived, I joined the army in Switzerland, and I remember my mom saying, the Swiss are crazy. You know, the Swiss, they have a navy, for crying out loud. There is no ocean in Switzerland. And they have a navy. They have a battleship on the Constance Lake, and they have a submarine on the lake that goes around trouts, for crying out loud. All right? So while I was there, I needed a way out. And the way out for me was, hey, wait a second, I am Catholic. I need to go to Mass. It's been 6 weeks since I went to Mass. I'm going to just use that as a leverage. I'm going to go to my CEO and ask him to provide transportation so that I can go to Mass. And then they will drop me and I'll go and do whatever I want. But the Lord started his relationship with me that day, that morning at 7 a.m., because the gentleman that showed up, instead of being an insignificant soldier as I was, he had the rank of major. And so I looked at the guy and I thought, wow, this is going to be tough to try to get out of here. I only have $20 in my pocket. This is going to cost me more than $20 to buy silence. And when he was driving from the mountain down into the town of Montreux, that's where we were going, the gentleman arrived in front of a church of Saint Martin de Tours, and he parked the Jeep facing a small door on the side of the church, and he made me follow me. So I got out of the Jeep, I went through that small door, was the sacristy, and with much surprise, the officer takes his uniforms off, starts putting an alb on, puts a stole on, and I'm thinking, who the heck is this guy? Well, yes, he was a major, but he was also a chaplain. He was a Catholic priest. That was his parish. And so Mario, instead of being around Montreux, looking at girls and doing every vice possible in 3 hours, I ended up being the altar boy, the readers, and they were starting 40 hours devotion adoration, so I had to do the incense, I had to sing the O Salutaris Hostia and the Tantum Ergo, and you name it. On the way back, I was very frustrated because what I had planned didn't become true. And he said to me, you know, I think you should join the Swiss Guard. And I said, seriously? Do you think that I can be dressed as a clown, standing still on the Rome cobblestone, on humidity of 97%, holding on a spear without talking? I don't think so. And he says, well, that's a description of what the Swiss Guards are. But to be honest with you, the Swiss Guard, since 1506, they've been carrying a huge responsibility. And I said, oh, really? Which one? And he said, well, the Swiss Guard are the Defensores Libertatis Ecclesia, the protectors of the church's freedom. And I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. Keep talking. I think you caught my attention. And then he said, and then, you know, you're going to be a bodyguard. You'll be carrying a gun. Sold. Sold. So, as you can understand, I arrived in the Vatican as a young Swiss Guard, okay, with a largely secular understanding of Catholicism, which was my parents' faith, but not truly my own. And this outsider view was both helpful and deceiving. In fact, I was able to meet St. John Paul II without any preconceived notion. And his impression on me was not filtered through my perception of his office, but purely based on a human level. In many occasions, as a Swiss Guard, I witnessed the 5 practices that I told you a few minutes ago model the way, inspire the shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. To a point that one day, I was standing in a room with St. John Paul II and Yasser Arafat. You remember Yasser Arafat was the leader of the Palestine movement, short guy, general. And standing still on that room, I heard St. John Paul II in English talking to Yasser, going around this line. He said that he needed to understand that in order to earn and in order to sustain personal credibility, he must be able to find his voice by clarifying his personal values and then expressing them in his own style. Because by finding his voice, he was taking the first step along the endless journey to become a real leader. And clarity about personal values, my beloved friend, is an essential part on modeling the way for others. So that day I made myself a promise. I am going to be a leader. I'm not going just to be a good leader. I'm going to become a great leader. If that guy that's 4 feet tall is going to be a leader, I can definitely be a leader. I am going to mobilize others, setting the example by aligning my personal actions with my shared values. And in order to do that, I have to listen not just with my ears, but with my heart. I was so proud of myself. I thought that I had it. It's a piece of cake. I'm just going to figure out what those values are. I'm going to put them straight, okay? Everything under control. I'm a Swiss guard. I have a Glock 9mm under my left armpit. I can definitely do it. But then, of course, the next day was my day off after 10 days. And on my day off, we used to go to the Irish pub near Mary Major. And the Irish pub near Mary Major opens at 5, and the guards are there for the first Guinness. And by 9 o'clock of that day, everything gone. My idea of becoming a leader, my idea of aligning my value, gone, flushed away. But the Lord didn't give up on me. A few days later, I get a phone call while on duty from the colonel, and he said, Mario, I just got a phone call from Cardinal O'Connor from New York. There is an American guy coming. And I know that you're studying English, you speak English, you're going to go and get the guy. We're going to do a favor to Cardinal O'Connor. And I said, okay. Oh, by the way, Mario, he's a convert. I had absolutely no idea what the word convert meant. Because in Italy, either you are a Catholic or you are an idiot. So there isn't a choice. So convertito, convert. I'm a finance guy, so I was thinking maybe he's a currency trader. I don't know. And then I did some research, and I figured because I was driving a Fiat Uno and my car was decent size, I thought that convert meant paraplegic. And so I thought that the reason why the colonel asked me was not because of my English knowledge, but because of the size of my car. So that this gentleman will have had a wheelchair and they will fit in my car and so on and so forth. So there I am, a Fiumicino, waiting for the Pan Am. Do you remember the Pan Am? Okay. Philadelphia, Rome. And I'm there, and I had a paper that the colonel had given me with the name of the guy, that I never really looked at the name of the guy. And there I am standing, waiting to see somebody coming out pushed by a wheelchair. And all of a sudden, this gentleman, as tall as I am, black mustache, curly black hair, comes and he puts his hands like to shake my hands, and he says in English, "You're looking for me." You know that moment that you are caught completely off guard? You know, and I said, I don't think so. And he said, well, that's my name. And I look, Scott Hahn. Scott Hahn. My name is Scott Hahn. Nice to meet you. I hope you know who Scott Hahn is. And I thought, okay, he's not paraplegic. So I drive him, I drop him at the Casa Tranoi where he was staying, and he opens like a briefcase, and he gives me something that was bigger than a book, wrapped, okay, on a red paper. And I thought, oh, so nice, those Americans are so nice. And so then I'm bumper to bumper trying to go back into the Vatican, and I'm thinking, let me see what actually he really truly gave me. And so I open it, and there were 3 tapes on the left side and 3 tapes on the right side, white. And I thought, oh, my colonel is such an amazing man. He knows that I'm in love with the Led Zeppelin, and he probably told these gentlemen to bring me a compilation of the Led Zeppelin. And so I put the first tape, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, what the heck is this? I went straight to the 6th tape, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, who's such a narcissist that gives 6 tape of himself talking, for crying out loud? Well, I went to my English class with the nun that she was teaching me, and she said, Mario, you still have the Walkman. Do you remember when we had the Walkman, you know? And she said, why don't you listen to the tape when you do the night shift? You know, you can try to understand what he's talking about. By the way, those were a series of talk that Scott gave that then he materialized in his first book, Rome Sweet Home. Okay? And so I started listening to these talks. And at about halfway through the 3rd tape, the Holy Spirit took the 2x6 behind my head, because Scott Hahn talks about the concept of sola fide. He talks about the concept, my beloved friend, that faith alone will not guarantee salvation. And he didn't see that on a bumper sticker. He found that on James 2, verse 24, where he says, a man is justified by work and not by faith alone. And I got into a crisis, and I thought, wait a second, what does this mean? I thought simply, I say a prayer when I get up in the morning. I always pray before I eat. What the heck does this mean? Faith alone doesn't guarantee salvation. What the heck do I have to do? I tithe, I give what I have in excess. I know what almsgiving is. What the heck is he talking about? What am I missing? Castel Gandolfo. Castel Gandolfo is the summer residence where Pope John Paul II used to go in vacation. Pope Francis doesn't go there. And we went there, was Easter break. St. John Paul II will go all summer, and then he will go Easter and Christmas few days. Just few guards, no uniform, dark suit, in incognito, door closed. And we will bring 2 of our sisters so that they will cook, and he and Monsignor Civic, they will eat with us. We will go to Mass in his chapel. And then if he will go into a walk in the villa, we will go with him. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I hear the door. So I go down, and they bring me a package. And I get the package, I close the door, and then I'm thinking, well, it's 3 o'clock, for sure, nobody's in the apartment. The only father is probably out, I don't know. So I just went up, and I walked down this narrow hallway, knowing exactly where the chapel was, and I had to go to the end, where I was gonna, it's like a living room, okay, and I was gonna leave the package right there. But my instinct was such that when I arrived at the height of the chapel, you know, I did, you know, those bows that we do, you know, fake bows, you know, instead of doing a full bow, you just do a little bow. You know, like we all have pain in our back, okay, little bow. Okay? And so when I arrived there, I slowed down and I turned and when I started bowing, I froze. Why? 3 o'clock in the afternoon. St. John Paul II, the chapel was very small. Few pews on the left, few pews on the right. There was a pews in the center, a small one, with red velvet pillows, okay? And St. John Paul II was kneeling next to the kneeler. His left hand was grabbing the kneeler. His zucchetto was on the chair in front of the kneeler. And his right hand was grabbing the slack of the altar. And his forehead was resting on the back of his hand. No cameras were there. Absolutely nobody. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I saw that, I felt the bone marrow go up and down my spine. And I just walked away. I put the package down, and then I walked back, and I did not dare to look into the chapel. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. We are on a walk with the Holy Father inside the villa, okay? Security details is very simple because walls are very tall, nobody comes inside. But when you do security details, either you are the first circle or the second circle. In other words, either you are next to the Holy Father or you are about 10 feet, either in advance or behind, okay? And I was 10 feet in advance. And there I am. I knew exactly the path that he was going to follow. And I knew that he was going to curve left to go to a little fountain with some fish there. And I stopped to the right next to a huge laurel bush. And all of a sudden, the Pope, that was walking alone with 2 guards just near him, instead of turning left, he turned right and he started coming toward me. Panic attack. Why is he coming toward me? He's not supposed to come here. Where is he going? And I am not wearing a uniform, so I'm not going to do my salute. I'm wearing my suit. Where am I going to put my hand? Oh, I'm going to put them, moment of panic. You don't know, what am I going to do now? And all of that lasted, I don't know, a second and a half. Enough that he arrived in front of me. He grabbed my left wrist, where I wear my watch, with his right hand. He looked me in the eye with his blue eyes, a color of blue that I didn't find yet in any other human person. He grabbed my wrist and my watch, and he looked me in the eye and he said, "Mario, why don't you join me next time?" And then he let go of my wrist, and he turned, and he walked away. And I thought, join him? Wait a second. He wants me to join him in prayer? How did he know that he didn't see me? Wait, what the heck is going on here? That phrase shocked me so much that I remember that my mom used to tell me, when you feel a little, the problem in your guts, you got to go to confession. And so we returned to the Vatican, and I went to St. Peter, and I went to confession. It's been a while. I was really afraid, to a point that, I don't know if many of you have been to St. Peter, but at my time, the confessional were on the left side. Today, they are on the right side. But you can choose the language on the confessional. And so I decided to choose the weirdest language possible. Because I thought, I'm going to choose somebody that speaks Armenian or whatever. I'm just going to do my confession in Italiano. He has no idea what I'm confessing. He's going to absolve me. Done deal. But even if in another language, that priest, that penitenziere, out of the blue, he told me that I had to become a model that others could follow, exactly like him, like my boss, like the Pope. And in order to do that, as a leader, the first person I should lead, it's me. Many times, as leaders, we want to change people, but guess what? In the area of modeling the way, the principle is crucial. Trust me when I say, don't try to change someone else until you change yourself first. As a leader, you are the picture and the model, because people, they don't buy into your vision, they buy into you. If you are an investment banker or a wealth manager, they are not giving you the money to you because of the performances of your funds. They are giving you the money because they trust in you and not in your products. Leadership is not just something that you live, but it's something that you behave. I finally had to become a model. I realized that I had to become a model that others could follow. And so I went to Him. I went to the Lord. And the way that I went to the Lord through His mother, starting praying the Rosary with these beads that I carry in my pocket every day. Let me tell you how those beads arrived in my hands. I was hot, I was tired. I didn't want to be there. It was supposed to be my day off, and they called me and I had to be in service. And all of a sudden, I was on the third floor. They called me that the Holy Father was coming. And so you have to secure the place, turn off the elevators, close the door, make sure that the people in the Secretary di Stato, they don't come out. You clear. And St. John Paul II shuffled. You know, that's a sign of Parkinson. He didn't clack, clack. He walked, shh, shh, shh. So it was a very mechanical noise, okay? The growing intensity for us was 10 feet, 5 feet, up, here, 5 feet, 10 feet, down. It was very mechanical for us, okay? That day, because I was upset, because I was sad, because I was hot, I really wanted him to stop and say a few words with me. You know, when you are a Swiss Guard, it's not that you can just say, hey! You don't do that, all right? You just stay there, and if he wants to talk to you, so be it. He arrives, I hear the noise growing, I secure the place, I put myself in attention, and he walks away. He doesn't stop, nothing. He doesn't look at me, nothing. I felt so sad that I closed my eyes, remaining in the position of attention. I closed my eyes for probably, I don't know, half a second. And when I reopened my eyes, he was right in front of me. I didn't hear him walking back. He was right in front of me. And he put his hands into the cassock pocket, and he took beads out. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Mario, the Rosary is my favorite prayer. Marvelous in its simplicity and profundity. Take these beads and make them your most powerful weapon. And since that day, I consider this a concrete sign of manliness. Every man in this room should have a rosary in his pocket. Don't keep rosary on the nightstand because your grandmother gave them to you for your first communion. Put them in your pocket, because real men carry this. But the Lord didn't give up on me. And so I have met another saint in many different occasions, Mother Teresa, and one day, since I was still trying to understand this concept of sola fide, I wasn't very clear, okay? One day, this was my 5th or 6th time that I met Mother. Mother had arrived, she was in a private audience with the Holy Father, and then she came outside, and I said, I gotta ask her, what the heck, you know, why were you inside with the Holy Father for such a long time? And so I did. Can you imagine going to Mother? Well, I had asked the assistant of the Dalai Lama if he was wearing underwear. So I was curious, all right? And so when Mother came out, I've known Mother, she recognized me, and I went to her and I said, Sister, What did you talk about for such a long time? Well, she looked at me and she said, Gospel of Matthew, 19th verse of the 28th chapter. She turned around and left. And I thought, why those people, they don't actually talk normal? Why do they always have to talk in codes that doesn't mean anything to me? I went back to my room at the end of the shift. I grabbed my Bible and I found it. 3 words. Go make disciples. Leadership, last few minutes, is the ability to move people. Is the ability to change their minds and their hearts and consequently their actions. And God works this transformation through the Holy Spirit. For us, the Holy Spirit is the animating force, the change agent of human existence. You know what? The works of leaders is change. You can get from here to tomorrow in one giant leap. Extraordinary things get done one step at a time, and leaders experiment and take risk by constantly generating small wins and by learning from mistakes and despite persistent oppositions, especially in your workplace, and inevitable setbacks. Leaders demonstrate the courage to continue the quest. You know, I came to the conclusion that the greatest leadership role model of all time is Jesus. If he had not been able to attract followers, think for about a second. If he had not been able to attract followers, Christianity might never spread. And it was not just the message that attracted followers. It was the man. It was the man and his ability to engage with people. Leadership is a relationship between those who aspire to lead and those who choose to follow. Sometimes this relationship is one-to-one. Some other times is one to many. And Jesus, you know, he was not elected to serve as the former leader of a movement. He just acted like a leader. And others started to follow and to believe. For many years, St. John Paul II imparted the strength to hope. He was truly a witness to hope. Once elected Pope, this strength, trust me, was tested in ever increasingly varied ways. And he never held back, despite the difficulties of a particular situation. He never resigned himself to the decline of the church, rather just the opposite. He intuited a rebirth of faith through the word. I had to give the Holy Father a package. Apostolic Palace, they give it to me. I have my uniform, my sword, you know, and so I walk straight into his office, which is where Pope Francis celebrates the Angelus. That's the Pope office. So, very simple office. Small. I knock and you don't hear, come in. You just knock and then you open the door and you close the door and you stay right at the door. And when I did that, St. John Paul II was at a desk writing. Here it's a little insight. St. John Paul II always wrote with the same pen. He had a Mont Blanc. He loved his Mont Blanc. He always had the Mont Blanc with him. And if he hadn't, his secretary, Monsignor Civic, will carry old-fashioned Mont Blanc, white gold, the one that you still aspire the ink, okay? And he was writing on a piece of paper, and he had a book under his left hand. Behind him, on a bookcase, there was a clock. So there I am with this vanilla envelope, you know, those oranges envelopes with the bubble on my hand that you feel like you want to pop everything in there. And I'm looking at the Only Father, that is where the lady's here, more or less, and the clock is right behind. 5 minutes go by, and I'm still there, and he's writing. 10 minutes go by, and I'm still there. He's still writing. He's still not paying attention to me. And so after 10 minutes, I did what everybody would have done. I cleared my throat. He finished the word. He kept the Mont Blanc on the paper. He looked up, recognized me, and said, "Mario, patience is a virtue." And went back writing. You know, in a situation like this, you will probably melt like butter, but, standing right there thinking, okay. And then, I said to myself, what is he writing? He probably is writing something related to that little book that he has under his left hand. And because by that time, everything that man had, I wanted it. At that time, it was clear to me that he was a unique person. Every single word he said, every single word he wrote, I was paying attention. Whatever he had, I wanted it. And so I thought, I gotta find out what is that book. And so, I'm right there, I'm far, and I'm trying to look, but he's covering it. And all of a sudden, I see Tolstoy. And I'm thinking, Tolstoy. Tolstoy books are this big, for crying out loud, and this book is this big. What is he? Wait, does the Pope read Sparks Notes? I don't think so. And so, finally, he looks up and he says, yes. And so I walked and I says, Holy Father, this is for you. And when I gave it to him, he moved his hand, and I saw the title of the book. The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And so I bought it. Now, you can buy it tonight for $6.99 on Amazon and get it tomorrow morning. And my time, I had to go to the Libreria Vaticana, order it, and wait 3 weeks. All right? And I got the book, and because it's only 76 pages, man, in this room, we can read it. 76 pages, we can handle it, all right? And I read the book, and didn't mean a thing to me. And I thought, what the heck is this book? Why is the Holy Father reading this book? And so I thought, I'm going to read it again. Maybe I read it too quickly, and I don't grab the meaning of the book. And I used to carry the book in my pocket during the service. And one day, the Holy Father is coming, the usual security process, and instead of putting the book in my pocket, I put it on the windowsill. And the Holy Father came, I with my salute, he stopped, how are you, he engaged in few words, and then he saw the book behind me. He didn't connect the dots, absolutely, or at least I think he didn't. He saw the books, he picked up that book, and at that point I came out of my attention, and he said, this book is about many things. It's about the weak spots of the human heart. It's about the primacy of death. But most of all, is about the consequences of living without meaning. That is, without hope and without truth. Mario, be always for the truth, even when it hurts. And he gave me the book, and he walked away. An expression, last 2 minutes, I'm almost done. An expression I heard many times from St. John Paul II was, be more. He never said do more, get more, make more. Be more. What I, Mario Enzler, what I took from this teaching was to rediscover, as I said at the beginning, the beauty and the power of my own charism. Remembering that no gift given is meant for oneself, but it is given for the good of the church and her missions. The most significant contribution leaders make are not to today's bottom line, but to the long-term development of people and institutions that consequently they will adapt, they will prosper, and they will grow. May we all come to see our position of leadership in the same selfless way that St. John Paul II taught me. So the next time, please, the next time that you say to yourself, come on, why don't they do something about this? It's so obvious. Why don't you just find a mirror and look at the person in the mirror and point your finger like St. John Paul II used to do to that person and say to that person, why don't you do something about this? Thank you very much, and God bless you.